Mr. Meinert was leaving his office and he had his coat on. He grabbed his briefcase, picked up a small stack of mail from his desk, locked the music room, and headed for the door. Mr. Meinert had one hand on the office door before he saw Hart sitting there on a bench below the clock. Mr. Meinert stopped, turned quickly, and hurried down the hall towards the parking lot. He shoved the envelope into his coat pocket. The mail could wait. He had enough of Hart Evans for one day. He was almost at the double doors when he heard.
Hey, Mr. Meinert?
It was Hart. Mr. Meinert turned around. Acting surprised, he said,
Oh, it's you, Hart. I'm sorry. I'm so busy right now. I'm sorry I'm in a rush. Can this wait till Monday, please?
Hart trotted down the hall until he reached his music teacher. He did his best to smile a little out of breath. He panted harder than he needed to and fanned his face, stalling for time. Hart wasn't sure what he was going to say to Mr. Meinert, but he felt like he ought to say something, anything, so he just started talking.
I just wanted to say, well, what I did in chorus today, it wasn't what we talked about yesterday. And I think I kind of made you mad. And I'm sorry about that, because I knew it would make you mad in the first place.
Hart gulped and swallowed and made himself keep talking, his mind barely ahead of his words. He was extremely nervous.
But if I made you mad today, does that mean you're still going to do the concert?
Mr. Meinert did not want to be having this conversation. He didn't want to answer Hart's question. He was tempted to turn his back and go out the door. But he didn't walk away from the question. Instead, Mr. Meinert did what he learned to do all his life. He told the truth. He nodded slightly.
Yeah, that's true, Hart. I was happy to take charge of the chorus again.
Really? That's great, because I think we can put something on, like a concert, but just the kids. But I don't know much about chorus, but about music and chorus. None of us do. So, can we count on you if we get in trouble with, like, music? Because you're the music teacher?
Mr. Meinert remembered what he had seen during chorus earlier today, and he remembered Hart's talk with Ross. And he thought to himself, Hart Evans is here recruiting me. He is inviting me to be on his team, just like he did with Ross. Mr. Meinert just stood there with his mouth open, amazed at the nerve on his kid. Still, it felt like an honest invitation, so Mr. Meinert decided to give Hart an honest answer.
Yes, Hart. Absolutely you can. You can count on me.
Hart smiled, stuck out his hand, and after a short hesitation, Mr. Meinert shook Hart's hand, surprised by the strength he felt there, energy, and the sincerity.
Well, I gotta go back to detention. I'll see you Monday, okay?
Mr. Meinert nodded in agreement, turned around, and walked out the door, heading towards his car. As he pulled in deep breath of cold November air, he had to smile. And just as it had earlier, one word jumped into his mind. Brilliant. Mr. Meinert was very impressed with Hart Evans, and he was now actually looking forward to seeing what Hart could do with the whole concert idea. Deep inside, even though Mr. Meinert was still mad at Hart, he could not help but sort of respect him, and actually was looking forward to talking to him yet again after the concert. When Hart peeked in the doorway of the music room, only one row of lights was on. Down at the front of the room, Mr. Meinert was standing at his desk, staring into a cardboard file box. Hart paused. It was something about the way the guy stood there, leaning slightly forward, both hands on the back of his chair. He had a look of concern, almost sadness in his face. Hart felt like he was interrupting. He knocked on the door frame anyway. Mr. Meinert jumped a little, but when he saw it was Hart, his face broke into a big smile. Hart felt easier seeing a smile on his teacher's face, making him feel more comfortable.
Mr. Meinert, can I come in for just a moment?
Sure, of course. Please do, Hart. What a great concert. Really, one of the best ever, anywhere.
Thanks. I looked for you over in the gym, but Yuri had left, and Colleen said you might be here. So, Mr. Meinert, I just wanted to thank you. Because if it hadn't been for you, we would have never had a concert. I mean, not like this one. It just wouldn't be possible.
Hart suddenly felt embarrassed and felt another blush coming on. There was so much he wanted to tell Mr. Meinert, but just could not find the right words.
So, anyway, thanks.
Hart walked to the desk and held out his right hand, and Mr. Meinert reached over and shook it. It felt great shaking his teacher's hand like that. It made Hart feel like a grown-up, as if Mr. Meinert was actually his friend and not just his teacher. And that's when Hart saw what was in the file box. A pair of orange-handed scissors with D. Meinert written on them, Mr. Meinert's great musician desk calendar, a stack of music educator magazines, and 6 or 7 books, each of them with D. Meinert's scroll on the cover. It looked like his teacher was packing all his belongings, as if getting ready for a long trip, or even worse, moving.
How come you're emptying out your desk? You moving to a different room?
Well, I'm sorry, Hart, but I'm not going to be back after this vacation. It's really because of the job cuts in the town. But I'm going to have to look for work somewhere else. I'm sorry.
You mean they fired you? They can't do that. Who's going to teach chorus now?
Listen, no. They didn't fire me. What it is really they eliminated my position. And they can't do that. It really has to do with the job itself. It's not so much with me. So it's not really personal. In all honesty, I don't even know who's going to teach chorus after me. And I don't even know when there's going to be chorus at all come January.
But why didn't you tell everybody? We could have done something. Like send letters, or make a petition, or start a big protest. Something. This is just not right.
I know. Listen, believe me, I agree with you. That's exactly why they affect the teachers. They now want to have a lot of attention. And they wanted to keep everything quiet before the vacation. They didn't want to have a lot of pity. They want to have a lot of, talks from everybody. They just wanted to keep everything quiet and nice and just wanted to do all their work and just keep everything on the down low.
But it's not fair. Why you? Why your job?
Hey, listen, I couldn't agree more, but that's just the way it is right now, Hart. For the time being anyway. But you know how things are. You know things can change anytime. Things can change like that, and in a moment, in an instant. You just have to stay positive and everything will work out.
It was Mr. Meinert's turn to hold out his hand. He liked Hart and did not want to upset him too much. He felt bad about the events, but there was nothing he could do about it.
So, I guess this is goodbye, Hart. At least for now, it's been a pleasure working with you. I really wish things were different, but for now I just hope for the future and hope for the best.
Hart shook his teacher's hand again, fighting back a lump in his throat.
So long.
Hey, Hart, hold on a second. I want to give you this.
Hart walked back, and Mr. Meinert reached into his file box and pulled out an envelope. Hart looked surprised, clearly not expecting anything from his teacher.
Well, I guess I can afford to give this up. I still have another one.
Mr. Meinert fished around in the envelope and then handed Hart a slightly used number 16 rubber band. Hart couldn't help but break into a smile. He could not believe Mr. Meinert would offer it back to him. That was when Mr. Meinert reached into the envelope again and held up another rubber band.
Well, Hart, I probably should not be saying this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Turns out, this is exactly what I needed. Thank you so much for giving me this.
Yep, worked out okay for me too. So, thank you also, Mr. Meinert.
Well, I've got to run, Hart. My wife's waiting out in the car. I'm sorry, but I've learned over the years, you never make your wife wait in the car for too long. Listen, have yourself a happy holiday. Try to stay positive. Try to think about the good times. Remember the concert. Remember the rubber bands. Remember all the good things. Remember the fun.
Yep, you too. See you around town, Mr. Meinert.
Well, you can count on it, my friend. Believe me, we'll be seeing you around soon enough.
And as he followed Hart out of the music room, Mr. Meinert turned off the lights. They both felt a lot better about the events after talking to each other.